Welcome back, everyone. In our last module, we covered the fundamentals of asking good questions, finding the right people to ask, structuring our questions effectively, validating problems, and maintaining feedback loops. Now, we will put those skills into practice by learning how to run effective feedback sessions throughout your product development lifecycle. Let's start with what I call the day zero meeting, that very first ideas meeting. One technique I found incredibly effective in this meeting is using hand-drawn sketches. Why? Because it helps make sure people don't dive too deep into solutions too early. When you show polished designs, people naturally focus on things like button placement, colors, or hover text. That's not what we need at this stage. But you can't just walk into that meeting and start showing sketches. You need to set the context. I always start by helping people understand the full process ahead. I say something like, today is day zero. We're just talking initial concepts. After this, we'll develop wireframes and share those with you for feedback. Then we'll create high fidelity designs and get your input on those. Then we'll define all the engineering work, build a prototype or MVP, get feedback on that, and then move into full development and shipping. After that, we'll start getting customer feedback and iterate from there. This kind of signposting is crucial because what you need from people changes at each stage. In wireframe reviews, you're validating flow and functionality. In high-fidelity design reviews, you're refining the user experience. In user acceptance testing, you're validating the implementation. Each stage has its own purpose, and you need to make that clear to get the right kind of feedback. Here's where I see a lot of product leaders stumble. They go into feedback sessions without clearly setting expectations, and things go off the rails quickly. They end up with 50 notes, but only one piece of actually useful data. Here's how to avoid that. First, always start your session by clearly stating its purpose and scope. If you're in an early vision meeting, you might say, today we're focusing on understanding the problem space. We're not looking for solutions yet. We'll get to those in our next session. What we really need to understand is the challenges you're facing. Think through your objectives in advance. What specific feedback do you need at this stage? What would make this session useful? What would make it unsuccessful? Then communicate those parameters clearly to your participants. But here's the really important part. You have to be willing to enforce those boundaries. If someone starts diving into detailed feature requests during your problem space discussion, you need to redirect them. I usually say something like, that's a great point about feature X. Let's capture that for our next phase. Right now, I want to make sure we fully understand the problem you're trying to solve. You've got to be ready to manage the flow of these sessions actively. Sometimes you'll get someone who dominates the conversation, or the discussion will start going down a rabbit hole that isn't productive for your current phase. This is where setting expectations up front really pays off. When you need to redirect the conversation, you can refer back to the scope you established at the start. Remember, today we're focusing on understanding the workflow. We'll cover the visual design details in our next session. But, and this is really important, don't just shut people down. Always acknowledge their input and have a clear place to capture it for later. I might say something like, that's a great point about the user interface. Let me note that down for our design review next week. For now, let's focus on making sure we understand the basic flow. Let me share some practical tips for managing these sessions effectively. First, always have a way to capture feedback that doesn't interfere with the flow of discussion. Whether that's having someone take notes, recording the session, or using a shared document, figure this out before you start. Second, anticipate where people might want to give feedback that's outside your current scope. Have a clear place to park those ideas. I usually create a feedback parking lot, a document or tool where we capture great ideas that aren't relevant to our current phase, but that we want to revisit later. Third, always close your feedback loops. If someone gives you feedback, let them know what happened with it. Did you implement it? Did you decide not to? Why? This builds trust and encourages better input in the future. Last, let's talk about synchronous versus asynchronous feedback. So far, most of what I described assumes you're in a live meeting, either in person or over Zoom, but that's not always the best approach for every situation or every person. I often record demos and send them to people, asking for their questions and feedback. This can be effective, but you need to know your audience. Some people will never watch a video, but they'll always show up to a meeting. If you put something on their calendar, they'll be there and give you great feedback. But send them a recording or a document in advance, it'll sit unread in their inbox. Then there are others, and you probably know some of these people, who you can never get on your calendar. But if you send them something to review on their own time, they'll look at it carefully and give you thoughtful feedback. This takes us right back to what we learned in the last module about understanding your stakeholders. Running effective feedback sessions is part art and part science. You need to balance getting the input you need with respecting people's time and maintaining their engagement. The key is to be intentional about every aspect, from choosing the correct format for each person and stage, to getting clear expectations, to actively managing the flow of discussion. Remember, your goal isn't just to get feedback, it's to get the right feedback at the right time to build a better product. Use the questioning techniques we learned in the last module, combined with these session management strategies, and you'll be well equipped to gather the insights you need throughout your product development lifecycle.